when we take a look at where these QBs are being drafted on ADP, Patrick Mahomes being drafted as the QB1 because Patrick Mahomes is awesome. But I would not at all be shocked, and this is people are gonna be mad in the replies. They're gonna be very big mad in the replies. I would be shocked if Patrick Mahomes ends the season higher than the QB4.
He's a legend.
So I've been thinking a lot about running quarterbacks, right? I've been thinking a lot about running quarterbacks for a while now, because I remember making this argument back when Tebow was the guy with my friends, back in 2011. And my whole point back then was, this is before I started playing daily fantasy. This is before I started doing content. This was the type of discussions I was having with my friends about fantasy. I was like, look, Tebow's going to run the ball so much that he really doesn't have to do all that much through the air to be effective, because of how many rushing points per game he's going to add, right? And I feel like there are way too many people when it comes to fantasy, right? There's different discussions and there's context involved, and there's things that we have to think about and some things that we don't need to think about when it comes to fantasy. Like, it's great to have a talented player, but if you give me a less talented player with more opportunity, the less talented player with more opportunity is likely going to put up more fantasy points per game than the player who is got a better pedigree, higher draft equity that was spent on him in real life in the NFL, has a larger contract, whatever, right? We need to be concerned with playing time. We need to be concerned with deployment. We need to be concerned, how the team is going to run that player out on the field, rather than our personal biases or how good that player is at football, right? I don't care how good a player is at football. It helps, right? Clearly it helps. When talent meets opportunity, amazing things can happen, right? You get guys like Nook Hopkins, who is amazingly talented and gets 150 plus targets a year. Great things happen when those two things happen, right? CMC, Dalvin Cook, when they get all the targets and they get all the carries and they get all the inside the 5 touches, great things happen. They are very talented individuals. And also they're getting the deployment, the usage, the targets. And again, I have to say this as well, when it comes to non-quarterbacks, a target is worth 2.8 carries. So if you give me a running back who gets no usage in the passing game, but gets 20 carries a game, or you give me a running back who gets 9 targets, but 1 or 2 rushing attempts, the 9 target guy is more valuable than the 20 carry guy on a week in, week out, if those are their averages. That's just the math. Don't yell at me. So when it comes to quarterbacks, the McKissick theory from last year, the Nyheim Hines theory from last year. Yes, exactly that. So Tim Tebow, 8.6 rushing points per game. Lamar Jackson in 2019, 11.4 rushing point, not yards, rushing points per game. That includes decimal of touchdowns, right? So like in a 16-game season, if you score 8 touchdowns, that works out to 3 more fantasy points per game. Now, I've argued that the rushing yards are their floor. The touchdowns create upside, right? Because the yards are more predictable, because these rushing quarterbacks, there's no definition for any of it. It's all subjective. It's all personal. It comes down to what you do. For me, a running quarterback, a rushing quarterback is one that you can pretty much predict they're going to run the ball 8 or more times a game. 7, 8 or more times a game, right? So guys like Lamar the last 2 seasons as a starter, Kyler the last 2 seasons, Jalen Hurts in the 4 games that he started, Tim Tebow all those years ago. Those are the running quarterbacks. You also have mobile quarterbacks, right? Guys like Dak Prescott. Depending on how he's being deployed, Deshaun Watson, even though I'm not sure he's going to play this year because of the off-field stuff, and he's probably going to catch a suspension. But his deployment was different with Bill O'Brien. If you look at his games for the last, 7-8 games last year, he was getting like 6-7 carries a game, as opposed to before he was getting like 2 to 4 carries a game. So like he was being used as he's a very mobile quarterback, borderline running quarterback, but he was being used as a pocket plus guy. And that's the third one. Pocket plus guys are like Joe Burrow, J-Law, Herbert, Mahomes. They're guys that can move, Aaron Rodgers, but like you're not drafting them saying, and I'm going to get rushing yards too. It's just kind of baked into what they do. They're not really having very many run plays called for them, but they will move if things break down. There's a massive spider on my wall, and it's got all of my attention right now, even though it's like 10 feet away from me. That's right there. Don't like him. Nope. Gonna have to sell the house now. Anyway, Brady would fall under these statues. Brady is a statue. So he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not a pocket plus. Yes, I know he's undefeated on goal line sneaks. My point is, I feel like projection systems, and I'm not here to name and shame, right? I'm not here to ask you to tell me which projection system is wrong. That's not the point. But look at your projections that you like, right? No matter which one it is. I don't care if you use whatever season-long projections you use, right? I don't care. PFF, Mike Clay at ESPN, RotoWire, whoever, right? Whoever you use. And if you have 15 of them, if you have access to like a bunch of them, go look at the rush yards that they project per game, or the rushing yards, and then divide the touchdowns by the games and add that to the projection, the decimal points that you're going to get, and see how many rushing points per game that they project for these quarterbacks, because I'm seeing a lot of Jalen Hurts at like 5.5 rush points per game. That just seems wrong. And I don't think he's going to average 11.8 like he did last year either. I have him in like the 8-ish range. I think he gets on average about 8. Oh God, the spider now disappeared. What's worse, if you see the spider, or if then the spider, you don't see the spider? I think it's worse now that I don't know where he went. This is a problem. Okay. So if he's in that 8 point per game, 8 rushing point per game range, and the way that fantasy scoring goes, like 4 points per touchdown for quarterbacks, for passing touchdowns, or 1 point every 25 yards. For him to be a 20 point per game guy at the position, he needs 200 yards and 1 touchdown a week through the air. In a 17 game season, that means he would finish this year with 3,400 passing yards and 17 touchdowns. So this whole philosophy of, I don't like the Eagles offense, that most people are saying, it could be a bad offense. I agree with you. It's like, whatever. Offensive line's fine. They don't really like Jalen Hurts. Rookie wide receiver leading the line. Jalen Reagor coming back off of an injury-plagued rookie season, as good as you believe he is. He was drafted before Justin Jefferson, good or bad as you believe he is, whatever it is. Goddard at least being involved, and possibly Ertz, but probably not Ertz if he's traded, even though he may be dust, whatever. There's enough guys to think that 3,417 is doable on an every week basis. What if he has like a 2 or 3 touchdown week, but he still gets his rushing points? Like, 24 fantasy points per game is not out of the realm of possibility for Jalen Hurts. Go look at any projections that you have, but like, look at Kyler's rushing points per game that they project. Look at Jalen Hurts' rushing points per game that they project. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at Josh Allen. And we can take a look at what they've done, right? Lamar Jackson, Go here. I'm at footballreference.com, as you can tell by the washed out from the white screen. Let's go to his career. We can take a look. You want to see what he did last year? We can isolate this by anything really, really quickly, right? Last season, 10.6 rush yards per or rush attempts per game, 67 rushing yards on average per game. That's 6.7 points and half a touchdown. That's 3 more points. 9.7. Right? Is the projection system that you're using, and the season before he ran for even more, it was like over 10. So like, are they projecting him for 9 rushing points per game? I saw one that projecting for like 6.5. It's my opinion that these running quarterbacks, you know, are being under projected in terms of the amount of value that they add with their legs. So let's go with until the injury, which was right here, right? Was it here? Week 9, week 10, week 11. It was in here because he stopped running. Up to this point, the first half of the season when he was the QB1, and he finished the season as the QB2 by a couple of points behind Josh Allen. We talked about this in the Kyler versus Josh Allen video. 6.71 running yard points per game on average. And over a touchdown. This may not be sustainable, but he does run the ball a lot. Right? He does run the ball a lot inside the 5. He was second on the team in terms of inside the 5 carries. Yada, yada, yada. If we extrapolate this out to the whole season, including when he didn't run as much, it comes way down. So like, this is kind of what I was talking about with Deshaun Watson, right? If we get this Kyler, who did not run it as much, right? 3.07 rush yard points and a tenth of a touchdown, right? He really came down at the second half of the year because they weren't running him as much. Yeah, don't forget to patch and update my system every time I go live. Windows wants to completely restart my computer, even though I do it after. When I log off, I restart the computer. It still wants to do it every time. On the season, this was him, right? Over 8 points a game. First half of the season, 10 plus points per game on the ground. So when he got hurt, and there's always that narrative, right? Well, the running quarterbacks are more likely to get hurt, and when they get hurt, they're not going to do anything. Well, it did happen with Kyler, right? That did happen mid-season. But even with that, he finished the year as the number 2 quarterback on the season behind Josh Allen. And the narrative before the season with Josh Allen was, we want to run the ball less with Josh Allen. So Josh Allen is now, still runs it around the goal line, but again, 26 rushing yards per game, half a touchdown, 5.5 points added. Right? So his floor is somewhere, just with rushing points. He starts every game with like 5 fantasy points from rushing. Lamar, Kyler, very possibly Jalen Hurts start with 8. They don't have to do much through the air, but when they get a lot through the air like they did with Josh Allen, you get a QB1 season. But when we take a look, and I'll pull up the RotoWire ADP tool here, right? When we take a look at where these QBs are being drafted on ADP, Patrick Mahomes being drafted as the QB1 because Patrick Mahomes is awesome. But I would not at all be shocked, and this is people are gonna be mad in the replies. They're gonna be very big mad in the replies. Unless Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, possibly the rookies. Let's not forget, Trevor Lawrence averaged over 30 rush yards a game in college. He's capable of running. Now, it may be more in the pocket plus guy Herbert, Burrow, but it's more likely that he's up in that next tier of mobile quarterbacks, but not running quarterbacks. We will see. I think he's more mobile than Burrow. I think he's more mobile than Herbert. Tannehill, similar. He's a pocket plus guy at this point. He can run. He adds something, but like he's way on the wrong side of 30. But like Trey Lance, gonna be a running quarterback. Justin Fields, when he takes over the job, gonna be a running quarterback. I would be shocked if Patrick Mahomes ends the season higher than the QB4. And people are going to be very upset when I say that. What are you talking about? He's easily the highest court. The amount of fantasy points that the league has, as the league has shifted to be more accepting of a quarterback who runs the ball 6, 7, 8 plus times per game. Josh Allen, they've moved him out of that role, right? He's now a guy who runs, but he also adds a lot with his legs around the goal line. So like he's more Cam Newton around the goal line, but not Cam Newton between the 20s, right? Lamar Jackson, probably going to run for more than 900 yards this season. Again, all of this assumes health for everybody. Kyler Murray, probably going to run for more than 850 or, ish yards per game, as long as he doesn't get injured again and they stop him from running. Like, he ran for like 67 yards a game before the shoulder injury last year. Dak Prescott, more of a mobile pocket plus guy. We'll see after the leg injury what he is. Russ, in the same boat, can run, doesn't, is not a designed run guy. Same with Herbert. Jalen Hurts, he's going to run it 8+ times a game. You could argue anything else you want. I think he might lose the job. What if he doesn't, though? What if Jalen Hurts does well enough? What if he throws 225, 230 yards per game, a touchdown to a touchdown and a half, throws like 22, 23 touchdowns through the air, throws for 3,600 yards. Nothing gaudy. Pretty standard, right? In a passing league, but he runs for 850, 900 yards and 6-7 touchdowns. Go do the math on that and figure out how many fantasy points per game that is. Because again, if we go back to, this is RotoWire because they had stats. I can go to ESPN and do the same thing, right? Let's do that and check out Mike's, right? ESPN.com. Fantasy, foosball, projections, quarterbacks. There's a button. Sortable projections. Look what Mike's projections are. Patrick Mahomes, he projects at 23.2 fantasy points per game. Really high floor, amazing quarterback. Probably going to throw, very likely he throws for over 30 touchdowns. Probably throws for over 35. Very realistic. If he ends the season with like 35 to 40 touchdowns, you'd be like, yeah, that's probably where I had him. Right? But not going to add all that much with his legs. Mike's got him with 4 touchdowns with his legs on 70 carries. It's fair, right? Mobile quarterback, not a running quarterback. But like, if Hurts does what I said, right? If Hurts throws for 35, 3,600 yards, if Hurts, where does he have Hurts? Here. He's got him at 38. He's got him at 681 rush yards. I think that's a little muted, personally. And I love Mike. I'm not saying Mike's doing it wrong. I'm saying that if you look at the rush points per game that are projected for a lot of these quarterbacks, they're lower than what they've done. Lamar's run for like 1,000 yards for 2 straight years. He got an extra game this year. It's a whole other game. So like whether it's regression taking over, and it's in every projection set, right? If Jalen Hurts runs it 8 times a game, 9 times a game, and just holds the job and does this well through the air, He's going to be in that 22, 23 point per game mold. Justin Fields, on a per game basis, if and when he takes over that job, he's going to run the ball enough to give him a massive floor. And if he's just good enough through the air, and he does have great tools with Allen Robinson, with they just traded Miller, so he's got Mooney and he's got Kmet. Same with Taysom Hill. If Taysom Hill is the day one starter, every game he starts on a per game basis, Daniel Jones runs the ball enough. Russell Wilson runs the ball enough. Trey Lance runs the ball a ton. The amount of floor that these guys bring to the table, they don't have to do much through the air, but they all have the weapons to do a lot through the air, or at least more than people are giving them credit for. So be careful when you are looking at projections. I think that a lot of these running quarterbacks have a path to a top, let's say a top 5 season at quarterback, because they just have to be good enough through the air. They don't have to be great. Mahomes has to be great. Brady has to be great through the air to be in the top 5. Aaron Rodgers had to be great, and he was not the QB. He threw 48 touchdowns. 9% of his throws went for touchdowns last year. He was not the QB1. He was not the QB2. So be sure when you're looking at where these ADPs are and the value that is inherent in that ADP and how much upside there is, because I believe that the rushing quarterbacks have such a high floor that any sort of efficiency through the air gives them this massive top 3, top 5 at the position sort of possibility that the statue quarterbacks just don't bring with them. And I think that they're coming at a massive value in drafts, from Jalen Hurts at the 8th or 9th round all the way down through those rookies, depending on where you project them. If you're drafting these guys as your QB2, you have the possibility of grabbing one of those mid-round quarterbacks who is super solid, has a really high floor, and you're taking a little bit of a risk on these guys who are rushing quarterbacks because of how many games they may play. But if they rest that job and if they hold that job, their skill set and the way that they're going to be deployed gives them top 5 upside at the position. And it usually comes sooner rather than later, as we've seen with Lamar Jackson. We saw with Kyler the last 2 seasons. So draft accordingly. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later.
He's a legend.